Good evening, fellow Plexers. This video may be long. I'm going to try to help Joe out of the Plexaholic Facebook support group who's having more issues with his Synology NAS and Plex. So I want to cover a lot of ground, and I don't usually prep much for my videos, but I've spent a bunch of time tonight testing out some different theories to figure some things out. So first off, let's bring his post in. I don't usually do this. I don't think he'll mind. He had some pretty funky structure on his Synology NAS. And one thing, this is not set up to try to run a test Plex container on because of the uppercase lettering. So this is better. It's all lowercase with no spaces. But somehow he changed this public XL with the P, the X, and the L capitalized to having it all lowercase. So my first thought was maybe he lost Plex permissions by doing that. Well, I tested that theory out. That didn't happen. But the unknown is he had a so-called expert helping him, and I don't think Joe really knows what went on and what didn't go on. And he questions whether this guy is a genius or a scammer. So that's problematic to not know what was done by this other person. So I've spent some time checking different things out, and I've created a little outline for myself for this video. And I don't often even do this kind of prep. I usually just wing it. So we're going to verify that the server is actually claimed through the web app. Then we're going to double check permissions on the shared folder. And then we can troubleshoot his current Plex install by creating a new shared folder and copying just a few items to it. And if that works, that's good. We will go through extra steps to remove permissions from the original folder completely, save it. We'll rename it slightly to something totally new, and then we will add permissions back. If that doesn't work, maybe a database issue is suspected. I'll find Matt Peterson's DB repair unraid tutorial video of Chuck PA's fabulous database tool. Chuck PA is a Plex employee. He's the resident Linux expert in Plex's forums. And I did not make a video myself on a Synology NAS because I basically followed Matt's great tutorial video completely, and I only had to adjust one thing, and I don't remember the character, but there was a different way to become the root user on Unraid versus the terminal in Synology NAS, and it's just one character change. So later on I can maybe let Joe know what that is if he decides to try to run the DB repair tool. But we'll point to Matt's video so you can watch that and see if that's something in his wheelhouse. If it's not in his wheelhouse, there's no sense talking about it too much. Another option is to uninstall the package while leaving the application data, to then rename this shared media server, to then reinstall Plex as a package, which will recreate this as a fresh server. So you can always stop Plex, nuke the new test install in this shared media folder, and then rename the old one back to this and start it back up, and Joe will be back with his original server that doesn't work. Another option is to simply stop the Plex media server package that's not working, and to follow the fabulous Marius hosting guides to get a brand new Plex server going in a Docker container with hardware acceleration. And I can go into Portainer to give some tips if Joe wants to try that. The guides really are great. The only thing that's difficult to understand is how to set up the paths to your media, and I can show you that using Joe's directory structure, whether he keeps this or renames the shared media folder to something else. So this is my outline I'll keep off to the side as I go through all these steps. I'm trying to throw the kitchen sink at Joe's problem because I'm not there to see it. And Joe, we can stop right here if you want to treat me to a round trip plane ticket to wherever you live. Pay for a hotel room for a few days. I'll take a couple days vacation and spend a whole day fixing your Synology NAS and Plex server. I'm retired. I'm game. Let me pause this video so I can clear my throat. Okay, I'm back, and you'll have to forgive me. I've got some seasonal allergies going on. So let's jump into checking the permissions. So let's go to Control Panel in DSM. Let's make this full screen. Well, no, I'll leave it windowed. I'll need to leave it windowed. So we'll go to Shared Folders. And remember, Joe's shared folder is called Public XL. Now, I've changed the name of this shared folder a few times, and permissions stuck. But whoever helped Joe, maybe he did it through the terminal and permissions did not stick. So I'm sorry, we're not even starting here. Let's put a pin in it. Let's go to the web app first. All right, you'll see my Docker container on this NAS is not running. Only my regular server and a test server on my newer Synology NAS. So Joe, go to the web app, go to Authorized Devices, go to All and change it to Server. And if you see your Plex server here, it does not need to be claimed again. If your Plex server isn't there, it needs to be claimed. And I might as well do that now. It's not on my list. So this support article, Opening Plex Web App. I've done a few tests, and sometimes if you stop Plex and remove it and then reinstall it, even on a Synology NAS, it will not open for you unless you use this formula. I'm glad I remembered this. So let's go to my document, and I'll paste this in. Let's make it big enough to see, and let's format it correctly. Okay, so now we need the IP address from the NAS. So you can go to Control Panels, Network Interface, click on, what are we clicking on? Oh, Edit LAN 1, and here's the IP address. So I'm going to copy that, go to my text document and just copy that in ahead. So this is all you have to change. Now with a Synology NAS, this always works to claim a Plex server. If I uninstalled Plex completely or partially, so I left everything, and then I reinstalled it, and I ran the server. So, well, let me just verify that I don't have Plex running in a container. Okay, it's exited. So I can run this one. You can't run two Plex servers off the same NAS easily. So let me run it. So at this point, when you go to open and it won't open, it may be trying to claim it through the quick connect address, and that's just not any good. So this will go to it. So let me bring up this, simply paste it in. Okay, why is it being funny on me? Let's try that again. Oh, I think I know why. I know why we might not be able to do it. Let's try this. Okay, so that's this one here. Let's get rid of the server. So it's still running. It's still running on the system. I've just unclaimed it. Oh, I left out part of the address. My mistake. I probably didn't have to unclaim the server. I'm not hitting on all cylinders tonight. Too much research. Okay, so I think I see my mistake. Okay, I believe that's correct now. No, I won't double check. We'll just assume it's correct. Okay, so I'm into my NAS. All right, it shows it's nearby, and I can just claim the server this way. Same name. And I don't think I have to save the changes, but let's see. No, I didn't have to save the changes, but I want to check automatically signed in. So that's not hard to claim a server. Oh, let me show that one more time. For people who are running Plex Server under Windows, this doesn't always work. Sometimes you have to use this local host. I don't know why that's a problem. I've only fooled around with Plex a couple times under Windows. I don't currently have it installed except on a hard drive that's out of my bench system. But Windows is not my forte. Okay, so let's go back to where we were on the list. We're going to verify the permissions. So let's stop Plex Server. And we'll go to Control Panel, Shared Folder, and I have to be careful with this. I don't want to show my admin username. So you would click on your shared folder. In Joe's case, I think it's Public XL, all lowercase. You choose Edit and you click Permissions, but I have to go off screen because the local users will be up first, and I'm going to change that to the system internal user so I don't show my admin username. So it's just changing from local users to this. So under Plex Media Share, you want read and write access for the shared folder. Now remember this, because if this is checked, maybe I jump ahead and I would uncheck this, I'd save it, and then I go in and rename that shared media folder again, and then come back and re-enable access. Because if this is checked, Joe really should be able to see his library folders to add to Plex, or if the libraries are already added, he should be able to adjust the permission. And that's something not on my list, so I'll just save that, and let's go to the web app, because maybe this is it. Okay, so I can't access that, but I can use my other test Synology server to demonstrate this. So if you go to libraries and you click into one, click the three dots, choose Manage Library, and choose Edit, and go to the folders, it may simply still just be pointing to the old structure that's been renamed, and you might just have to browse again to the same folder it needs to be pointed to. That could be an issue too. Again, not being there to actually see Joe's interface for the Plex server and his Synology NAS, there's a lot of blinders in this troubleshooting step. So this could be an issue right here, and I'm glad I thought of it early on. All right, so let's go back to our settings. So we just verified permissions, and if they were already there, I would suggest removing the permissions and then rename the folder. You can do that right from Control Panel here, Edit, and just change this. And before, just the case was changed. It's public XL. Joe, change it to media. Just change it to media XL. I don't care. All lowercase, no spaces. And then you go back in, and whatever the new name is, it's the same deal again. Edit, and you click on permissions, change to the system internal user, and because it's a brand newly renamed folder that you remove permissions from, now you'll have the option to check read write, or it can be read only. Read write is needed for a DVR. If there's no DVR, it can be read only. Okay, so that's how to troubleshoot the permissions. And if that still doesn't give you access to your media through Plex Server, I would troubleshoot with a brand new shared media folder, and I'll walk you through that. So at this level where you see your shared media folders, hit create, create shared folder. I'm just going to call it media 1, no spaces. My default file system is BTRFS. I'm only going to enable the recycle bin. I'm going to skip this, and let me bring it off screen for a second. I'll hit next. At some point, this is going to go right to the permissions tab and show everybody my admin account username. So you don't need any of this. I'll hit next again. I'm getting closer. So this kind of tells you what's going on. I'll hit next again. Okay, and this comes up with my local users. So I am going to give my admin account and my regular username access. And then I'm going to change it to system internal. Well, I have to save changes first. And then I could change to the system internal user. And still on this Plex Media Server internal user, I need to give read-write access and apply. I just couldn't show all the steps without giving away my admin account name. So now we can ditch Control Panel. We can go into File Station, and we're just going to create two simple library folders. I know, Joe, that I hyped the sort folders, but you don't have to use it. That's what I use here. I use sort folders, and inside the movie library sort folder, I have my individual movie libraries. So you don't have to recreate that nested structure. We'll just do something simple. Create folder, movie, Again, lowercase, no spaces. Create folder, TV. And let me create a second one. TV-kids. Again, no spaces. Okay, so now let's copy some media to that, okay? So let's go back to the media original. And let me go into my movie library, my main movie library, and let me just copy a regular movie. Oh, I can't do it here. Let me copy those two. Copy, not cut. And where are we? Media here. And I'm going to go into this library, right click and choose paste overwrite. And then we will go into the TV sort folder. Let's close this down, TV libraries. Go into the main. And I'm going to copy this one and paste it here. And then let's go into the TV Kids and copy this one. Okay, so let's see how long we have. Well, it's done. So we're just doing this as a test. So now I have a little bit of media in all these. Backing up the wrong way. Okay, so now we're going to add those to the existing Plex server install. But I think I'm a little rushed because I have to start that package still. Okay, so it's not running. We've granted it permission to the new folder. And now it's running. So let's go to the web app. Because the server's already claimed, I don't need to do anything besides go find it. Okay, so it took a little bit to spin up, but here it is, Syno 1019-test number 3. And now remember, it's got the original movie library. Browsing to the media folder. Let's see. I just lost track of myself. Okay, so there is no media folder. This is from my previous experiments. So if I go into this and I scan the library, they're still there. Oh, nope, they won't play. So that's good. That's the good outcome. So I won't remove this. I'll just edit the path. And maybe that's your issue, Joe. If paths change like we spoke about earlier in the video, I won't remove that. I'll add another one first so you can see the difference. So volume 1, it's now media 1 for the test, and it's a simple movie library, and there's only 2 movies in here. So you see the difference? Let's remove that old path and let's save the changes. And now these will play. And they're all public domain movies and shows, so I don't have to worry about showing that. So now let's add 2 more test libraries. Media 1, TV. This is all public domain episodes. I rename from the TVDB, so I always change episode ordering to that globally for my library. And let's add in that last TV show library. I'll call it Dash Kids. Volume 1. The new temporary test shared folder, TV Kids. And this especially, this Looney Tunes show wasn't a real TV show. It's all old movie serials, and none of it's listed as a fake TV show in the movie database. So this definitely needs to be changed to the TVDB globally for that. Okay, so these scanned in, they'll play. And these scanned in. And let's play that one. Okay, so that's great. And if that works for you, Joe, let me pull DSM back up. Well, that could work for a couple different reasons. So this media 1 is just a test. If that media plays, but the media in your public XL folder doesn't play, I really can't explain it if you've done this step like we talked about. So the first thing would be to rehash that. Go to your public XL, don't do that yet. Edit it, rename it to something else completely, like just plain media. No, I'm sorry, you do have to, I'm getting mixed up. You do have to go to permissions. So let me bring that off screen. Change to system internal user. Uncheck this. Save. And then edit it. You just call that media original media. We'll save it. Just in case something pops up, show my admin name. Okay, it didn't. And then edit it again. Click permissions. And you may have to enable your user and your admin permissions again for read-write access before changing to system internal user. So I had to save that before it let me change the system internal user and add that back in. The permission read-write or read-only for the system internal user. So I've done all that. So now you go back to the web app, and again, this is assuming that a test new media server did work for you. So now I'm going to add a library from that original folder that's been renamed, and we've kind of turned permissions on and off. So I'll add a movie library, and this one will be a 4K. I think I got a 4K folder. So volume 1, media original media. Well, I did it fast. I clicked into the movie library sort folder. 4K, I can see it. That's already a good sign. I like changing the minimum collection size to 2. Add the library. And as you can see, the permissions are fine. The media is scanning in. All right, so what's next on our list? So if it works, you remove the permissions, change the name to something completely different, and then re-add the permissions. If none of that works, let's go look for Matt's DB repair video on YouTube. Okay. Let's see what we find. Okay, so we found Matt Peterson's page. It's at the top. Let me pause it. And basically, when you go through his steps, this is pausing a great thing when you run it. Now you're running this through terminal. You've got these options to check the database and repair it. And I want you to watch this, Joe, because if it's beyond you, let me know. But if you think you can do it, I'll do a little bit more research for you, and maybe I'll even create a fresh video. I never wanted to do that on the Synology NAS because this is an excellent video by Matt for Unraid, and there was only one small change I had to do. So if you think this is in your wheelhouse, I'll dig up that small change to his instructions and you can follow his video. And if you can't get it by following his video, I'll use my own unique way and make a new video for you. But this is excellent. And this is by, I don't know if he talks about Chuck PA from Plex's forums in the description, but I think he does in the video. Okay, so what's next? Okay, so here's an option, and let's go through that real world. So this is not a nuclear option, it's something you can recover from. So let's go into Package Center and let's go to Plex.
You have an informational message.
And we'll stop it. And then let's go back into the control panel.
You have a new flash mail.
To shared folder. And don't get scary, but we're going to rename this -old. And maybe I shouldn't have done that. Let's fix this. I shouldn't have done that. I'm missing a step. And I just kind of outlined what I wanted to do. I didn't really outline all the steps I need to take. So before we rename that, let's uninstall it, but not fully. So back to the Package Center. We'll click into it, and down the side here we'll choose Uninstall. Yes, I'm sure. Now this bottom option in red is the nuclear option. It's not recoverable. This keeps the files ready for a future install, and this one unclaims the server and keeps the files. I don't think we have to unclaim the server. We're simply going to create a test one, and the web app should open up with that server already named because it expects to find it there. It may or may not work this way, but we're going to leave it claim for now, and if we have to claim it, we will manually. All right, so I'm going to uninstall that, click OK, and Plex is no longer on the list. So now let's go to Control Panel, Shared Folder, and now we'll rename it to preserve this. Just -old. And now I'll show you a trick. Everybody warns against installing Plex as a package the first time from Synology because you gotta have the latest and greatest. Well, you don't. You can simply search for Plex. It's a much easier install this way than going to, well, let's show that. This is going to be a long video anyway. So you go to Plex Downloads, you want to be on Media Server, you want to change to Synology for DSM6 or Synology DSM7, and then people get confused when they choose the package, it would be the Intel AMD 64-bit. And you see I already have the package downloaded from earlier today in my ISO files, and they're really Linux ISOs here, so I won't download it a second time. So let's go back to this. Now if you installed it, it's going to install version 1.29. It's the same version you got off the website, just back in time. It's not a special version. So you can install it this way, and you can simply update it once you get it installed, just like you'd update Plex Server normally. So it doesn't hurt, but as long as you know how to install it manually and which file to download, you can do that. So we'll do that in this video, but it's not a terrible thing to install the older version and maybe add one small library to then go update it, because you update Plex regularly anyway. So we're just starting with the newest version first. Normal install, I don't have a claim token to use, and we're hoping it might just stay claimed. But it won't point to any media. So this tells you how to check the permissions to make sure they're set, and we'll double check that again. I'm not going to try to open it from here because that'll just expose my Quick Connect ID. So now that it's running, let's just double check the permissions again. Shared folder. We should have both these folders as shared folders. So let me hit edit and take this off screen, hit permissions, change to system internal user, bring it back on screen so the permission's still there, and I'll check this to edit, take it off screen, permissions, change to system internal user, and I've got access. So I should be able to add media from either of these shared media folders to this new fresh install of Plex. So now let's go back to the web app and see if we have to claim this or not. Now it looks like we are going to have to claim it. Okay, and I'm not sure if we've talked about this earlier in the video. I'm not going to try to open it from DSM because it'll just expose my Quick Connect ID. Lots of times when you reinstall a Windows Plex server, this is the only way to get in to claim it. This always works on a Synology NAS. So let's go to my list here. Okay, so maybe we talked about this already earlier in the video. I should be able to claim the server now this way, just like we showed earlier. Make sure I got it all right. Okay, so quick and easy. This is what you want to see. Got it. We're going to name it Syno Test 4. I'm going to uncheck this because I've got to put a manual external port number in that's already port forwarded on my router. And I won't show that. I've got a video for that already. I don't want to have to mask out my external IP address from this video before I get it ready. So now we can start adding a library. So let's add something from the newer shared media folder. We'll do the plain movie folder. Volume 1. The newer test folder is Media 1. And here's the regular movie library in that folder. We'll add this. I always change my minimum collection size to 2. It doesn't really matter on this test server. And now let's add the document. Let's add the 4K from the old shared folder. Volume 1. And now this is the old shared folder that's been renamed, and we've done the permission dance. Off, rename, turn them back on. And this one has the sort folder. So I'll go in the movie library sort folder, 4K, and because we can see this, we know we have permission. And again, this to 2. And I don't have to add a TV show library from both locations, so let me just add it from the original location. The one that had all the name changes going on and the permissions on and off. Oh, where am I? Media original, and this time we have to go into the TV library sort folder, and we will pick the main TV show library. Advanced settings, because I name exclusively from the TVDB with FileBot for TV show libraries. And now we're into next, and we're done. So I can actually get rid of this because this is going to show my main server what's on the screen. And I didn't mean to close that whole 3 tabs down, but I can go to the web app. Now if I refresh this, my test server 3 is gone, but I see the test server 4. And because that test server is gone now, well, it's not really gone. I'm not going to remove it because, in all fairness, I should stop this and show you how to recover the original server. So I'll leave this because that's not gone from the Synology structure yet. But I can go in here and you can see movie scanned in. They play, they're public domain, so I don't have to worry about showing a little of them. Well, this isn't public domain, it's something I ripped. This is public domain. And this is an old, I think it's an 8th gen Celeron powering this NAS. And then let's do something from Betty White's early days. Man, I wish I had more episodes. This is all I could find from this cute early show. It's not even a network show, a local, I don't know if it was NBC or somebody else, affiliate in California, made their own little TV show with Betty White. Okay, so obviously everything works. And we're detecting intros and stuff like that. And let's back up. It's a brand new server. So let's go to the transcoder. Hardware acceleration is being used. Let's show advanced. And it's an HD Graphics 500 in the DS10 19 NAS, and I think the 918 Plus has this too. The 2020 Plus models have the UHD Graphics 600 iGPU, and because it's a 9th gen iGPU versus an 8th or a 7th gen, whatever this is, it's more capable, and I would consider the UHD Graphics 600 the bare minimum of what you'd want for a Plex server. This this test server is just enough more capable that this is the bare minimum. Okay, so I was kind of waiting until the intros are detected, but we're probably going to nuke this anyway, because now I'm going to restore the previous one. In case Joe figures out some fix to it past this video, and he can go back to his original server. Alright, so back to DSM, back to the package center, Plex. We are going to stop it. Yes. And because the other server is the same version, I'm going to try something without uninstalling this. I needed to uninstall it to pull the package in fresh for a replacement, but I don't think I'll need to do that to simply swap back to the old server. So let's try this out. Let's go to, it needs to be control panel, shared folder, and we're going to take this one and we're going to edit it -2. Let me do it this way, to delete. And I'm worried about exposing my admin name, and I don't want to stop the video to cut part of it out. Okay, so now we'll rename this one back to what it was supposed to be. And again, just on the off chance. Okay, so the test server number 4 is no longer in the right folder structure. The test server 3 is back in the right folder structure. So let's see what happens if we simply start the Plex package back up. Okay, so it's running. Let's minimize that, bring the web app back in. And I'm doing everything from app.plex.tv. Except when I have to claim a server, then I need the actual IP address to claim it. Okay, so the test server 4 is not running and the test server 3 is. But let's see what we have for libraries now, because I've kind of lost track of where we should be. Will these work? Yes, because none of the folder structure changed, so they're still working. So Joe, this is another non-destructive comparative test you can make. If you just can't get the old server running, you can rename it and start fresh. And then down the road, if you figure out how to get the old server running, you haven't destroyed it, you can go back to it. All right, so let's go back to my list. Let me check here. All right, I'm already almost 50 minutes into the video, but there's no way for this not to be long. And I've done good. I haven't had to cut anything out of it yet. Okay, so we've done that. The only thing left to talk about is the fabulous Marius hosting guides. So let's go back to DSM for a second and stop this. Okay, I've got Portainer up where I stopped that test server originally. So let's bring in a new window for Chrome. Okay, is this the right one? Okay, so he shows you how to install the package, and we've been through that in this video. That's easy. And I think this is using the Synology package to then update. and this is using the official package. And again, it doesn't matter because you update Plex anyway. You can start with the older one and just update it. So this is using a what is it? A task. I got to go back to the Synology NAS. I could just go into the instructions, but if I go to task scheduler, he's installing Plex where you can't gain hardware transcoding through a simple task scheduler install. That's very simple. Now this is installing Plex. Let's click into it to have hardware acceleration. And let's see how he does it. He's got to use Portainer to do it. So this is what we'll talk about. But I don't know why he has this other Portainer. I don't know what's different. But he leads you through all the steps. But what's difficult is I really don't like how he describes his path example. And this is kind of like Joe's structure. It's confusing. And Joe, don't get mad. It just is. See if I can bring you up again. So, Volume 1, Public XL Videos Than TV. It kind of makes more sense than Marius's example does. Volume 1, Movies, Media, Movies. So that's just a lot of stuff to confuse. But everything to the left of the colon is real structure. Well, this would make it look like you'd have to add another one that says Volume 1 TV Media to then get medias in there, and then you'd name it TV on this side. And read only is RO. You might want to put this RW if you're going to have a DVR active. So I don't like this, but we'll use this as our example. And this would be the container definition, and he instructs you to create a folder called Docker. Inside that folder, a shared folder called Docker. Then inside that shared folder, you create this. Well, you can call this anything. You could call it Plex Sino if you want, but this would have to be Plex Sino 2 if that's what the folder is called. So this line's easy. This is real structure. Whatever you name the Plex folder has to be here, and this is what the container sees inside. So this is real structure, and this is what you see inside the Plex interface. So let me copy that out, and we'll go back to we can use Joe's example, and then I'll show you how I have it in Portainer myself. All right, so instead of fixing all that, it's quicker to copy it into off screen into a plain text editor to then cut and copy back here. Okay, so let me turn the font down a little bit. Okay, so this would be just as it is. It needs read-write access. We're going to make this work for Joe if he wanted to try this. Okay, so let me pull his things up. So where are we? I assume his structure is Volume 1, Public XL Videos, and we see the TV, and I imagine he has another subfolder under Videos called Movies, and then maybe a third subfolder under Videos named Music. If he doesn't, he should. But if he doesn't, he'd have to have more definition. But if everything's under Videos, it's fine. If everything's under Public XL, that's fine too. Because we're just going to use one path instead of multiple paths to define the container. So this is Marius's example that I think is confusing, and this would be Joe's. Okay, so 24, let's change that to 24. And it's simply that easy. And I would change this side to something more sensible, to maybe Plex Media, because that's the folder you'll see inside Plex if you're running Plex as a Docker container. So instead of volume 1, public XL videos TV, we're simply going to see Plex Media, and then in Joe's example under Plex Media you would see videos, and then you'd go into everything below it. So here's another option. If in the videos subfolder he has a TV, a movie, and a music subfolder too for his actual Plex libraries, this could actually be to get him one step down, so the alias will lead to showing everything in this structure, which would be those possible library folders: TV, movie, and music, and maybe multiple TV libraries, multiple movie libraries. So this is the only confusing part about the Marius hosting container, because nobody's going to put TV shows someplace in this structure. So you would have to, let's also, well, we don't have to do that. If you keep doing his way, let's move that down. Give me a little bit more room to work with. Let's copy that again. So if you think you got to follow this, you might have another shared folder name like that, and you'd have to define both paths. And then to take it a step further, if you had a music library, that would be a third shared folder for media, and it just doesn't make sense. And the biggest downfall of this is if you ever want to graduate to a star app setup like the Trash Guides show, you will break atomic moves, because it takes a long time to move a file from different shared media folders. But if everything's in one shared media folder, a file move is instantaneous, and it just speeds the whole process up, where multiple shared folders for different types of Plex libraries will slow that type of progress right down to a snail's pace. It'll be like molasses. Okay, so basically I copied and pasted this, and all I did was change the time zone. We'll show that in a second. These instructions show you how to run a scheduled task to find your PUID and PGID number. You do not have to grant any permissions for a Docker container. These two lines are your permissions. The Plex claim code is optional. You just have to claim your server. But he shows you how to find your claim code to put it in, so you don't have to claim the server. It'll just be associated with your account and in the web app when you first start it up. So that's nice. What else happens here? We do not have what we need for hardware acceleration. So very similar. That's the difference between these two. This is Plex with Portainer without hardware acceleration, and this is the line with hardware acceleration. It's virtually identical, except you have this devices line to then gain hardware acceleration on the Intel Celeron processor on the NAS to then enable that in this Plex server setting. So if you have an AMD based Synology NAS and you're following this video for the hell of it, you can do the other install and not have to add this line in. Or you can follow these instructions and just get rid of that line. So again, he uses the same confusing path for someone who's not familiar with a Synology NAS folder structure or how they should set their media up. This is just confusing. But it's an excellent guide past that. So let me show you my setup. Plex is not running, and I use Pertainer because I followed his instructions. You cannot get hardware acceleration going through Container Manager. You can get a regular Plex server going this way, but it's so much easier to follow his instructions for a task scheduler install. So like this one, you'll see it in his guide, but this is all you do to get the UID and the GUID. You don't really need a scheduled task. You could just run this from terminal and do it too. But the scheduled task is an easy way to install Plex without hardware acceleration. All right, so let's go into my setup. So Plex is not running. So we will go to stacks. I'll click in it. I'm using the Linux server Plex Docker container. And if I click the editor, I do not have a claim token here, so I can show all of this. I didn't change much. This is pointed at my shared media folder, Volume 1 Media Original. Because everything's nested under that, the alias is what I see inside Plex, my Plex media. So everything to the right of the colon is an alias. It's what you see inside Plex Server. Everything that's before the colon is your actual physical structure. And I've set everything up to just get to the shared media folder, and anything nested in that Plex can see. So here's my hardware acceleration lines, and I had to add in my time zone manually. And lots of times this is the same for all of us with a Syno NAS, but you run the little scheduled tasks to find out what they are. And it's really just simple. Once you get this, you simply update the stack, which I'll do now, read pull the image, and we'll just wait for a successful container deployment. Oh, and I've got a failure. Well, let me do that again, because I've renamed things, and let me see what the error message is instead of dismissing it too soon. Okay, Media Original does not exist because we've done some changes. So let me go back to Synology NAS, and we can just do File Station for this. Okay, so it's Media Original Media now. So since I've had that container running last, we've renamed this during this video. So I need to change this Media Original Media to Media. Or I could rename the shared folder again. So now I'll update the stack, redeploy the image, and let's see if we hit pay dirt. Success. The stack successfully deployed. So I can switch to container view. Now this will take Plex a minute or two to start up. So we won't go to the web app immediately. I'll just refresh Pertainer once in a while until we see it's running in green. And Joe, if you've stuck with me this long, you're a saint. And this is the best thing I could do besides making you buy me a vacation to come out and help you in person. But I tell you, man, if you're loaded, I'm game. If you got money to burn, I'm flying. How's that for a deal? I'm a good guy, but I'm not worth that much. Believe me. Okay, so this is already an hour and 4 minutes. This is probably my longest video. Okay, so now Plex is healthy. So let's go back to our web app, and we're almost done with all this. All right, so this NAS is shut down, and this was my original container. It's still the same server. We just changed the path. So if I go to the libraries and I go into one, again, it's all public domain.
From the library,
it's going to play. And let's go back to Portainer and DSM so I can show you why it's still playing. And this is important. I want stacks. Click in, edit. According to the container, nothing changed because this is the path. All I did was rename my shared media folder, but I didn't change any of the structure below the shared media folder. So this shared media folder really just had the name change, but all the structure was the same, and Plex only sees it as that alias, and that didn't change. If I had adjusted this alias, I wouldn't have had a connection to any of the libraries when I spun the container back up. And we can demo that right here. So inside, none of this structure changed. All the names stayed the same. All the subfolders for each library stayed the same, and all the movie folders and the file names all changed the same, or stayed the same. So this is a beautiful thing with Docker. You can kind of move a whole media folder from one system to another. And as long as you don't change the structure in it, let me give you one last view before we shut this video down. All right, I'm just using my Linux file browser, and I'll go to this NAS. You can rename the shared media folder through DSM, and as long as none of this changes, I could move this whole structure to a new Synology NAS. I could move it to a self-built Unraid server. I could move it wherever I wanted, and then I could move the container over. Say we're moving it to Unraid. The new shared media folder can be called Media Unraid, as long as all this stays the same. And then when you go to Unraid, well, let's not do that yet. Let's go to DSM one more time. I guess I can't end this video. This is just really long. All right, so let's examine our Plex Media Server. We see app data. We see Plex Media Server. Every Linux install of Plex has Plex Media Server with a space between the words and all these folders. So let me narrow this up. Let me bring in my working Unraid Plex server that points back to my media on my Synology DS1520 Plus. So this is running on an 11th gen Intel NUC, all because of the powerful iGPU for Plex hardware accelerated transcoding. I took 8 high bitrate 4K HEVC movies and put them to 8 client devices in my home, all transcoded down to 720p 4 megabits per second, all with tone mapping, and this server was just still doing its thing. I didn't have enough client devices to get past the limit of 8, so I know there's more gas in the tank for that. I just don't know where it'll quit. My DS1520 of regular 4K media could handle 5. I don't know if it could handle 5 of that same high bitrate stream. So anyway, that's why I run Plex Server on another device, and Unraid makes it easy because I can create a RAID 1 cache pool with 2 500 gigabyte drives that are dissimilar. My NUC has the one NVMe slot and the one SATA SSD port, and I'd have to have 2 of each in order to create a hardware RAID through the CMOS, through the BIOS. and I can create a software RAID that Unraid simply calls a cache pool. It is permanent storage. We think a cache is temporary, but it's not with Unraid. And I've done this as a test on another server. If one of these drives fails, I get the failure in the interface, but the container stays running just like normal. So I can buy a replacement drive, stop the array, shut Unraid down, swap in the new drive, start Unraid back up, and add this. I can't show you this without stopping the array, and I might have somebody streaming, but you remove the reference to the bad drive and you add the new drive to the cache pool, and you simply start your array, and within a matter of seconds these are joined together and you can go start your Docker container. It's the simplest drive replacement you could imagine. Alright, so I'm fooling around with a test Minecraft server for my 2 adult sons. I just spun that up today, and they're each supposed to test it, and if it works out good, we're going to use a spare HP 9th Gen i5 as their Minecraft server for them and their cousins. When we spun this up, it said my NUC could do 20 Minecraft users, but I don't know anything about Minecraft. My oldest son was telling me that as you're exploring new areas, it uses a lot of CPU usage. So we're going to research to see if Minecraft can possibly use the iGPU like Plex does for rendering graphics. It probably can't. It's a Microsoft product. So who knows? If it can, we'll spin this up on a 9th Gen i5 and use hardware acceleration. So anyway, regardless of that, we're going to look at this Plex container. Well, not yet. I did lose track. So we're going to go into the folder structure, and you see the app data, and you see Plex library, application support, and then you see Plex Media Server, and then all the same folders. So at this level, you can go from the Synology NAS here and just copy that in. You can recreate the structure, or you can spin up a container in Unraid, stop the container, and get rid of the Plex Media. I'm sorry, the Plex Space Media Space Server folder, and copy the one in from your Syno NAS. And then when you spin the container back up that you've already got working, if you set your paths correctly, you don't lose any metadata in Plex. And again, we'll show you that if I go in and edit it. I can pretend to edit it without stopping the container. We'll hit Advanced View. We'll show more settings. Now, because I was originally running the container with 5 different paths before I learned more, I recreated that when I spun this up. I could have changed it just to the master shared folder and done it that way. But all that matters is that you call the container the same thing that you did on the original server. And in my original Syno container of Plex, there was individual paths, and this is what was on the right side of the colon when I set it up following the Marius hosting. So because I relocated all the media here, but I kept the container path the same as what was on the right side of the colon with the previous setup, and none of the structure changed, this new container spun up and saw all my media just as if it was running on the previous Synology NAS. So I love Docker, but I love the Synology ecosystem more. I love Unraid for Docker containers, but I love the Synology NAS ecosystem more, so that's where my media is going to stay. But Unraid's a great choice to run it on a mini PC with better hardware acceleration because of the ease of having the redundancy. And everything's easy to update. If you wanted to update the Plex server, let me see, is anybody on my server? No, nobody's streaming. So, if I wanted to update, well, I could do this. I could check for updates on all the servers. And sometimes Plex says there's an update when there's really not one. But I can just force an update here, and we'll do it. And it doesn't take that long. Now it's going to be the same version. It finished successfully, and Plex is started. And if I go back to my web app, it might not be running because it takes a second to spin up. Well, there it is. So it's the same version as everything else because there was no update. So Joe, this is the longest video I've ever done. It's the kitchen sink troubleshooting video. It's 1 hour and 16 minutes long, and I'm going to cut it here. I don't really know what else to add for a troubleshooting step, but I hope something that I've covered tonight gets you going. Otherwise, I hope you're loaded and I can come out and have a vacation in your neck of the woods. Everybody else, happy Plexing, and there's certainly no reason for you to watch all of this video, but if you've stuck with me, you're wonderful, and I really appreciate any support I get on the channel. Take care.